Piles asked me, when did you first know that you wanted to be a writer? That's a great question. I've been writing for as long as I can remember. I started reading at a very early age, which I'm sure inspired the writing. But I've always enjoyed writing. As a child, I kept journals. And as I got older, that continued. I kept huge journals, one after the other. I had stack after stack of journals. In fact, I would give anything to have those. I have no idea where they are. They somehow, got lost in the shuffle along the way, but it would be really interesting to have those now. As a teenager, I wrote a lot of poetry, and that's really kind of how I poured out my emotions. But journaling was probably my big start into writing and into really enjoying writing. During my middle school years, which would be 6th, 7th, and 8th grade here, I journaled back and forth with a group of friends. There were 4 of us, and we were all like best friends, the 4 of us. And we had this one big spiral-bound notebook, and we would write in it and pass it back and forth, so we would take turns kind of journaling in it and writing group letters. We ended up having 9 of these spiral notebooks at the end of a couple of years, or maybe even just one school year or 1.5. I don't remember how long it was exactly. But we ended up having this whole stack of spiral-bound notebooks full of letters and journals back and forth to each other that we just continued to pass back and forth in each write-in. That was a really neat experience, and something I think that was a neat way to get to know each other, a neat way to share things, and a neat way for each of us to express ourselves with writing. As for when I knew I wanted to be an author, which is different, that I think first hit me when I was about 19. Of course, I was in no position to do anything about it. I wasn't in a position to write a book or share a message necessarily, but it just hit me that I knew that I was going to. 10 years later, almost, I think I was 28 going on 29, is when I knew for sure that I was going to write books. I knew for sure that I wanted to author some very specific titles. And it was at that time that I created a 10-year plan and basically created a lifestyle with passive income, flexible schedule, lots of time freedom and things like that so that I could put myself in a position to write. As you know, being a published author or writing books is laborious work. It takes a lot of time, and it doesn't necessarily pay that well up front unless you're already a famous author. And even then, it's really good to have a backup source of income. However, wanting to write books not for money, but for passion or for purpose is a totally different thing, and that's where I am. So I knew back when I was 28, 29, I knew that this was going to happen in my 40s. I knew that would be the decade that I would write my books. I'm turning 39 in June, and I'm on track, and I'm very excited about having the time and opportunity. My children will be raised, business is doing good. I'll have a lot more free time with the whole empty nest thing so that I can actually sit down and write for days on end if I want to. So I'm really excited about my 40s. I'm really excited about getting my books out there. And I'm sure those of you who know me really well think it's all business books, but it's not. I have several fiction titles that I intend to publish. In fact, one of my fiction titles I'm doing under a pen name or a pseudonym. She already blogs and tweets. Dogs are excited, sorry. Anyway, so yes, I already have a blog for the author of the first book that I want to publish under a pen name. And like I said, she is very active online already, kind of building up and preparing for the release of that book, which will happen sometime in the next few years. That's probably one you'll never hear about because, like I said, I am publishing it under a pen name. It's not something that I'll be sharing under my own name. But I knew, like I said, when I was in my late 20s, and I've known all along that I would be writing and publishing those books in my 40s, and so that's something I'm really excited about. And great question, Peggy. I would love to hear from those of you if there's something in your life that you know you want to do or you plan to do. What's one of your big personal missions or objectives? Maybe something that's taking some time to prepare for or taking some time to get in a position to do. And when did you first know that that was your objective or that that was going to be your main focus? For those of you that are writers or are published authors, any tips you want to throw my way are welcome. I've already hired Kristen Eckstein as a ghost publisher for my business books, and I may be working with her on some of my fiction books in the future as well. She is excellent to work with. I'm way behind deadline, so she is totally going to kick my butt. But I do have business books coming out too. In fact, I had one that I was hoping to release last year that I'm going to be releasing this year instead, way off schedule, but I'm actually really glad because I have so much more I want to add to it. Had I published it on time last year, I would already be writing a second edition. So I have business books, of course. You guys know I love to write because I do tons of writing across my blogs and across everywhere else on the internet where I work publicly. But writing books is something that I want to do just because it's a personal passion. I don't necessarily see it as being a huge moneymaker, although I could be wrong, I could hit it big, who knows? But that's certainly not my plan. Speaking of, Eat, Pray, Love was a really popular novel recently, and I'm curious how many of you actually read that book, probably the women that are watching. But I'm curious if you read the sequel. Elizabeth Gilbert has a sequel to Eat, Pray, Love, although the title escapes me at the moment. But I read it last year and really enjoyed it. The interesting thing is, she starts the book out talking about what it felt like to become a best-selling author and how it completely changed her life. She said it was totally unexpected and kind of threw her for a loop for a while, which I thought was really interesting. But I'm curious how many of you have read that sequel, because that was a really interesting point she made in the beginning of that book that kind of really resonated with me personally, of course. Like I said, really great question, Peggy. I look forward to getting my books out there. I look forward to my 40s when I'm going to have more time, more freedom, and more flexibility to just write. To me, that just sounds like so much fun. I can't wait to get my books out there.